I'm recording. So, just working with, OpenToonz. I like the brush I'm using. I believe it's the charcoal brush, if I'm not mistaken. I would probably have to go over to the palette to see exactly. Go here to my paintbrushes. And I don't know. I'm gonna click that and see what happens. Yeah, I like this brush because when you're sketching, it's a little fatter, like chalk. I like that. Feels good. And then when you dig in and press a little harder, it becomes more fine. It would actually be suitable for inking, actually. I did some tests yesterday with taking drawings like this, which this is a regular raster level, which allows you to use the My paintbrushes. Did some experiments with taking a sequence of TIFFs from a raster level and converting them to a regular toonz raster level so that they could be filled, and worked fine, worked great, no problems. I'm actually wondering, so in the in the anime we're developing, there's a particular character who, he's an interesting character because he's sort of a gothic guy, right? And this particular design I'm working on, he looks too angry. This gothic guy he's one of these guys who he's just a good guy, and he never says too much. You know, he's the guy in the group that kind of keeps quiet. But he's interesting because he's actually extremely knowledgeable and extremely powerful. But you never know it. He holds his cards close. So that's kind of a cool thing. But in his case, he would have very black hair. I don't know if I would want his... I mean, he's got to be wearing guy liner, obviously, because he's gothic. And that's just a pretty key characteristic of that kind of character. See, I like that right there. What seems to be not quite right for me is his mouth. Let's put it lower. I like that better. It reminds me of Sokka from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Sokka, the thing I remember about Sokka most distinctly is this shape to his head with his mouth real low. You know, so he's kind of like this. Something along those lines. I like that. It's a very appealing design. Now this is kind of dumb that I can't. I guess I could have hit the S key and selected all that, and so yeah. So if I really want to get rid of that quickly, I could hit the S key and hit Control X. But a moment ago I wasn't smart enough to do that. So anyway, so in this particular anime, I would say the overall design characteristic is less cartoony than Avatar. It's a little more serious, so I'm trying to ride the fence between a more serious approach. Kind of lit, huh?
Yeah.
Nighty night. More serious approach, and but still a little bit cartoony. It's a little bit, what do you want to say? It's not all dark. Let's put it that way. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say, but it all comes to bear on what the character designs look like. Now, for this guy in particular, right now, I really should have done what I talked about in a previous video, which is create the canvas. Actually, this is why having an infinite canvas for me is kind of a valuable feature, which you have in Blender. But here, the way you get that is by creating a level and at a larger dimensions than what the camera's actually going to see in terms of pixels. So I can still do that though. I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a raster level, and I'm going to go ahead and make the width. Let's just go ahead and make it like 4,000. 4,000 by 2,000. Excuse me. Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I just described, which is grab the S key. And I'm assuming this will work, but if I cut this guy, cut that, and then paste it here, yeah. See, now you can see by this white line that I have a much larger canvas to work with. So easy peasy. And go back to this. Yeah, see, there you go. I really like the fact that we can do that. That's so cool. So yeah, all I'm really working on is designing this guy, and I think probably what I'll do for the purposes of YouTube is go ahead and probably ink him with toonz, a toonz raster level, and just to kind of go through the painting process. And so I will not probably put his mouth on a different layer. There's one thing I still don't like about his chin. Seems a little blocky or something. It needs to be a little, yes. Basically, I want him to look slightly younger than what I have him here. Because again, this particular character is, he's disarmingly smart. He looks too young. And plus being kind of a gothic guy, he's a little different. So nobody at the school, and the story does involve a school, like a lot of anime, they don't know quite how to read him because he does keep to himself a bit. But he's that guy who, in a moment of trouble where decisions have to be made from a moral framework, he's the guy who's going to do the right thing and know the right thing to do. So, okay, so now, so I'm not going to animate him at this point. It's tempting to do so, but I think what I'm going to do for today is just focus on the character design. Hitting the H key to flip my canvas, which is with OpenToonz 1.2, something I really like. Just being able to check your work by flipping it is pretty much mandatory. I mean, anybody who's doing, whatever, matte paintings or background art, it's just something we all do is flip the canvas, and that's been a kind of an absent feature in OpenToonz, but not anymore. So okay, I'm going to save my work here. Okay, so this is being saved on the D temp folder. Okay, so I'm going to call this goth guy, and eventually I'll probably move this project elsewhere or export it to the real project. You got to realize, for several weeks as I've been working with software and trying to figure out if we have a workflow that's really going to be usable, I have not been sort of saving little test projects and stuff in the real location of the real project. So, but this design is one that probably will be thusly relocated because I do like it and want to run the concept by Valerie, see how she likes the design, and it's really her story. I'm kind of the, with in the past with filmmaking, normally I'm writing the scripts, I'm the director, doing most of the editing, obviously all the technical stuff like color correction, special effects. I mean, in my film Out of Time, there was a ton of special effects in Blender, virtual backgrounds, against a 3D green screen. That was back in probably 2009 or so. And it worked great. I mean, I used Blender like crazy in that movie. But it's kind of always been my thing. And with this concept, my partner Valerie will be making the creative decisions. I'm just here to facilitate, and that's part of the fun, actually. If you've ever dealt with filmmaking, what you find is that, or at least what I've found is, when it's 100% on you, it gets it gets old after a while. Actually, let's do a toonz raster level, and we'll call this Gothic Ink. So yeah, it's super helpful to have another creative voice, in the mix. And I think that's probably pretty obvious for most people, because most people haven't done what I've done, where they're making films and almost as a one-man band kind of situation. And that's got its benefit too. It is fun and interesting, but when you've made 8 movies, it's not so novel anymore. Hence, one of the reasons I am sort of getting back to animation, because I was thinking about creating animation in high school. I actually bought my copy of Disney animation, The Illusion of Life, by, I believe it's Thomas and Johnston, when I was in high school. And back then, in the 1980s, for me, the $40 or whatever it was to buy the book was kind of a lot of money, actually. And I'm redoing this so I can. And then why do I always give these guys angry eyes? That's like so stupid. So really, in all reality, if I'm going to animate this, I should be giving him. I probably should not be putting the eyes in there, but I'll experiment with different ways of doing it. I mean, what we could do is actually do the fill of the skin, but leave the eyes empty, so the alpha bleeds through to a layer below, and then put the eyeballs actually on a different level. And then you could even use the plastic tool to animate like the eyes squinting or that sort of thing. I mean, if you were going to try to take a puppet sort of approach, So once you get your brush dialed in, seems to go pretty quickly. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to outline his brow. I will say there's something about the brow I'm not totally thrilled with, but, we're not necessarily nitpicking the details right now. Just trying to get the design out and see how that's going to feel once it's inked and colored, and maybe even add a few shadows. So. So I'm thinking about putting a band together this spring. Back when, it must have been around 2008. I was gigging with a group, and we did a lot of. Okay, now this is interesting. I did not plan ahead, and actually this is too small, because remember I didn't make it the same size as the sketch layer. So I'm going to assume that there's probably a way to solve that. And if it turns out not, then we won't cry about it. We'll just figure out something else. That's okay. All right, let's see what happens when we just turn this sketch off. Yeah, that's pretty good, man. Pretty good. That's what I was looking for. Let's just go with that for now. We'll save all. Okay, so because I want to test if the methodology I had in mind is going to work. How might we do this? I'm gonna poke around here a little bit, and what I'm thinking is, I wonder if I've got any. Let's look in the Inkscape folder here. I don't really have any Inkscape stuff here. So what that basically means is, in the time that I've been rigorously testing animation tools, I really haven't been doing much with Inkscape. So, but here is Akari. Yeah, here we go. Saito side view. I'm going to drag this into OpenToonz. See if it will. Yeah. Okay. So you can drag an SVG file into Inkscape or into OpenToonz. So this was done in Inkscape. It doesn't look correct because OpenToonz doesn't do the most amazing job of importing SVG at this point. But the reason I'm doing it is because I just want to steal all the colors and paste them into this other guy's level. And now I can actually, there's really no reason for this level to be in there, so I'll just delete it. And then going back here, I now have all the colors from Saito. And now it's pretty darned easy to get this guy colored in. Yep, I know. I'm making his eyebrows and hair blue, but that's because OpenToonz will let me go ahead and change the colors after the fact. So, Gothic guy's definitely going to want to have pretty blackish hair, right? So, and then for lack of a better idea, I'm going to give him a maroon shirt. So now, Control S, I'm going to save everything. So now my question is, how do we want to do these eyes? I am assuming now, since I did not fill the eye sockets, that I can go ahead and begin to draw the eyeballs on a different layer, and that they will show through. Let's find out. Wait. Oh yeah. Yep, that works. Okay, so now what we could do, actually, I'm going to go ahead and, I guess we want to turn it off there. I'm going to go ahead and do this kind of just the pure hand painted way. So how do we want to do this? Let's go to this layer. Let's go to the palette. Okay, I've already got the correct My Paintbrush, so what I really need to do is just get the wheel going here so I can rapidly change colors. One thing I've noticed with OpenToonz is whenever I jump around here, I have to actually click away from the wheel view and then back to it, and then the wheel shows up. It's kind of strange, but whatever. And then I drag that down and we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is, let's just zoom right in here. And let's just do it like this. So I think I want this guy to have sort of compellingly bright blue eyes. And just to be meticulous here, I'm actually going to, at least I thought I was going to draw a circle, but maybe the geometry tool doesn't work on plain old raster levels. I didn't know that. So no big tragedy. Back to the brush, and we'll just do it like this. Now how did I wind up with a different brush? I wanted this to be, oh, it's just because I'm working at such a small scale. That's what it is. No big deal. Gee, I sound so chill considering how uptight I've been for the past week. But that's how it goes, folks. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a real, like an indigo blue, like John Travolta type eye color. And we're just, like I said, we're just going to do it the hard way. Now, if you're really thinking ahead, you may be thinking about the fact that you're going to actually need another layer or column or level, as OpenToonz calls it, behind the eyeball, because obviously the whites of his eyes are actually transparent. That means if there's a background behind him, then the background would show through. And you'd be correct. So that's just something we'll deal with later on when we feel like it. Okay, so now I'm thinking that the specular highlight on his eyes should probably be maybe on a different level so that it can stay in a static position even if the eyeballs move, because obviously when your eyes move, the lights don't move with them, right? So let's just take a peek here at what we've got. Okay, so now that's interesting. Why would that? Okay, there was one point where I was drawing. Let me just look here. Yeah. Yes, I accidentally drew that on this level. I'm moving so fast here. I vaguely remember when I did that. But I think what we'll do is we'll say no harm done in terms of the art, because being Mr. Gothic guy, he's wearing guy liner anyway. So it's not like... And then, by the way, while we're here, why don't we go ahead and demonstrate the way we can do shadows here, because we do need a shadow underneath his eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the palette, and this would be a good time to show a technique. So I need to see the style editor? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, not the style editor, the palette. Okay, let's go to the palette. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another color, and I'm going to do it traditional anime style. I'm going to make this 100% blue. Okay, and for this color, I'm going to click Auto Paint for Lines. When I click Auto Paint for Lines, what that does is it makes it so that when I fill this area with another color, the blue lines will get erased and covered with the new color I'm filling in with, which presumably would be a little darker version of the skin tone. Okay, so show you how that works. So you've probably seen anime like pencil test art or whatever, where there's red and blue lines all over the place, and that's what this is what those are for. It's just a really convenient way to do shadows. And I've talked in another video about doing shadows by putting them on like I was doing in Krita before, where you put them on a completely separate layer and then just use a blending mode between the two layers so that the shadows only appear on his body as opposed to outside the lines. So you can be really sloppy about how you paint it. But this should work. Now, remember, the auto paint for lines setting needs to be set for the blue color, not the fill color. And you can see that it works as expected. Now this color, actually, I want this to, I'm going to use an RGB picker to change it to the flesh tone and then just make it a little bit darker. Okay, now the cool thing is, and this again is the really nice thing about toonz raster levels, is I can change the color after the fact. So if I want to fine tune that shadow tone, it's pretty easy to do so. All right, as I like to say, save early, save often. Okay, excuse me. So now what we need to do is let's go ahead and duplicate the eyeball. And I think if I lock, I'm just kind of going on, I'm guessing here, but I think if the eyeball layer is selected, okay, so I guess the eyeball icon turns it off for the camera, and this icon turns it off for the drawing area. Okay, so now if this layer with the eyeball is selected, I can still have the layer above it open but locked, and I suspect that if I use the S key to select an area like this, it will select the eyeball. Yes. Okay, so now before I do that, just so we're not being too stupid here, let's go ahead and tighten this up. All right, because this is still a little bit sloppy for sure. I'm going to go to my palette view. All right. Okay, so now I should be in this layer. It is not locked. I hit the B key. Okay, cool. All right. So now I need to go to my palette so I get my colors right. I really want the outside of his eye to be very tight. So we're really going to go ahead and tighten this up now. Now my luck, I'm going to check this right now. No, it's still recording. I've had so many times when I'm doing videos and then I find out after the fact that I wasn't recording and just dumb stuff. It's what happens when you move too fast, really. It's what it is. When I'm trying to figure out, what's going to work and what's not going to work, I tend to move very, very quickly, which is probably not a great thing. You do tend to make mistakes when you're moving fast. Okay, so the interior, the iris of his eye, I really want to give a very distinct blue, vivid blue color. And let's go ahead and put those details in. All right. I'm going to go ahead and, I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and paint in the reflection. I just want to get, if I'm going to use this, let's get it right. Okay, that looks pretty good. Not happy with the outline. Once you zoom out, you can see how rough it still is. So I'm going to just try to, there's a lot of ways I could address that. I could address it by actually jumping to a toonz raster level and using the geometry tool to create a perfect circle. And then, that's better. Okay, but what I want to do actually is take my eraser tool, and I'm just going to try to shrink that down. I really don't want I want the hardness up pretty high and the size down pretty low. I need to set up some hotkeys for resizing my brushes and my erasers, definitely. But this is more like what I was after. Okay. It's like once I shrink it down, I can see what I've really got now. Yeah, and that's the actual size of it at this point. So kind of spending a lot of time here on the detail work, but you know, like I said, let's just get it right, you know. Okay. The only thing I'm not happy with is this area right here. And that will probably be fine. Okay, let's go to the, actually I've kind of been working, I guess, in the animation level. All right, so now we can turn this back on, but we select the eyeball layer. Let's see if we're happy with that. I am pretty happy with that. I would say that I want his eyeball to be smaller though. So I'm going to use the S key to select it and actually shrink that down a little bit. If I hit the Shift key, that keeps the resizing symmetrical. All right. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go C, Control V, and I hope, yep, it did. It made another copy. All right, and now I'm going to select this layer. It looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to hit the A key to edit this whole layer. Okay, because what I want to do is I want to see how the eyeballs behave when I move them around. Okay, it feels like this, the right eyeball is not quite where it needs to be. I actually wish that it wouldn't, like you see how when I select it, it shows in front of the face. I actually wish it wouldn't. And there may be a way to do that, but offhand I don't know what that way would be. So grabbing this layer again, A key. Okay, you can see the problem. So, well, that's why we test this stuff. That's exactly why we test this stuff. Oops. S key. Grab the left eye. One thing I have learned with animation, if you're going to err on the side of making the eyes slightly cross-eyed, actually, as opposed to, you know, Marty Feldman eyes. But again, I'm still not happy with this. So a little bit of fine-tuning here, definitely. A key. So what we may discover is that the eyes will have to be sort of dealt with individually. You know, the eyeballs. If we limit the range of motion, if we say we're going to probably limit the range of motion, then we may be able to get away with leaving them together as a unit. But the reality is we're probably going to have to animate them separately. So no big deal. We could always just separate it onto 2 layers. Just thinking, how do you duplicate a layer? Yep, I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take this column, and I'm going to drag this column here. I'm going to grab this here, hit the S key. Okay. Okay, so now his left eye is actually on the right from our point of view. So this might sound like nitpicking, but the question is, which eye am I going to put in which column? I'm going to do it according to what I see. So for me, his left eye is actually on the right, so I'm going to put it on the column that's to the right. That really might sound like nitpicking, but you know, that's kind of stuff you get into the work, you get moving, and you're always grabbing the wrong column, you know. So let's go ahead and create a raster level. I could cut and paste it, but I'm not sure it would paste properly. So I'm just, rather than fiddle with it too much, I'm going to just create the level. If I paste it, will it create a raster level for me? Probably, but okay, so the cool thing about this now is I can take the two eyes, and this would be normal practice. This is what I would definitely be doing all the time. Grab those two levels, and in my case, I hit Control-Shift down arrow, and that turns them into a sub-X sheet. So now the eyes are unified together, but at any time I can go into the sub-X sheet and deal with them separately. And then what I also would do in normal practice is grab these two levels, and I would create a sub-X sheet for them, so that the eyes and the head are married together as a single unit. And again, you're keeping your workspace nice and clean. Now, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to save this. Actually, I want to save all. Because I'm thinking there's certainly going to be more work to be done. One thing I'm thinking, like for his hair, are we unlocked? Let's unlock that. And let's go to this view. Okay. What I actually would do in practice here is probably something along these lines. Not quite sure. Okay. And I'll just go in and erase this, tighten that up. Okay, so now I'm just going to grab a color that I am not currently using. Hey, here's a thought for the toonz developers. One thing that would be really cool, and it may exist already, so if it does, and you are the person who knows that it does, put something in the comments. Wouldn't it be cool if we could click a button and have every color in the toonz raster level show us in the art what numerically those colors are? So his flesh tone right here would show number 4, like a little number 4 would show up on top of that. That'd be kind of cool. Or maybe there's a way, I mean, I guess you could do it by experimentation like this. If I go in here and start changing this color, I'm going to find out real quick if that's the color of his hair. It looks to me like it's 8. Okay, it is. Okay, so 8 is his hair. 9 is not used. Right, 9 is not used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 9. I'm going to hit my RGB color selector. Okay, and now I'm just going to create 9 as a little bit lighter color. F for fill, and then remember, because I have auto paint selected for the blue lines, that gives me perfect highlights in his hair. Now, did I do a great job of creating those highlights? Probably not. You know, it's a little, as I'm looking at it now, it's a little winky, but all in all, not too shabby. So anyway, I think this is a good place to stop for today. You know, we've kind of had some success with OpenToonz so far. I'm happy with it. I have not bumped into any frustrating roadblocks or anything, and the workflow is quite intuitive and easy. I love the fact that if I wanted to, I'll do one more thing before I quit. Let's just say we were going to use this art and we were in a really big hurry and we wanted to use it like right now. Just go ahead and create something. Well, if I hit the X key, I can create a mesh that wraps itself around this guy's head. And since I'm on my laptop, I'm going to go ahead and set the mesh edge length pretty long, just because we don't need that many polygons for it to deform really well. So I'm going to hit apply. Now I'm building the skeleton. So I'm going to say the root of my skeleton is going to be, let's put it here. And then we'll put I would say, I guess oops, I didn't mean to do that. I want to go here. So whatever's the last one you clicked on, new branches are created from there. And then go into animate mode, and ta-da, we can animate it. Now, obviously I made a critical error, which is that I did not, what I should have done is made the eyes, what I said I was going to do earlier. I should have made the eyes and the head into a single sub X sheet, because then the plastic tool would have been affecting the whole batch together. So let's go ahead and let's see what happens if we combine them now. Remember, what the plastic tool is doing is it's acting as a deformer on the adjacent level. So if we combine these levels, let's just see what happens. I don't know if this will work. Okay, it doesn't work. And actually, not sure. This is interesting. I'm going to go ahead and delete this plastic tool level. Why are we still seeing? Let me go down. Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to go back up out of there. And I must say OpenToonz is operating a little slow today. It's probably because I'm making a video. But what I wanted to do was grab this and this together and make them into a sub X sheet. Okay. Then use the plastic tool, create a mesh, apply, build the skeleton, and we'll do it really, really simple. Like that. Animate. And there you go. And I'm pretty sure if I were to go in and animate the eyeballs in the sub X sheet, that they would animate properly. So let's find out. Okay, so now what we're going to do, let's save this. What I've been finding is I've done some tests where I've loaded up sub X sheets that are several levels deep. You can take a sub X sheet that's a whole scene and load it as a sub X sheet into another scene. So the idea of nesting things and having sort of a procedural workflow is really well implemented in toonz. So now what I'm going to do is go down into this sub X sheet. I'm going to hit the A key. And obviously, as I said before, these eyes are not, I don't want to move them very far or they're going to look stupid. But for testing purposes, whoops, wrong layer. Okay, so you can see his eyes move, and I'm going to go ahead and change the rotation as well so they look a little better. Okay, so there his eyes are moving. And so in my case, I'm going to go Control Up Arrow to jump out of the sub X sheet. And now it looks to me like the answer is no. The answer is no. The animation of the eyes is not seen, probably because of the plastic tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the plastic tool layer. And actually, this is kind of interesting. Maybe it wasn't because of the plastic tool. Let me go in here. Because this is the first time I've seen this. Okay. So we're just working on 6 frames here. And the eyes move. I come up out of the sub X sheet. I will go ahead and delete that anyway because it only took a second to create it. All right. So the question becomes, why is that animation not propagating? I bet I know why. I bet you these eyes need to be, they need to have 6 frames to work with as well. Let's just see. Okay, that is working still. And I'm going to go up out of there. And it's not working. So that's something I've got to figure out. I'm not quite sure. I've never seen that happen when there was something nested that the animation didn't propagate up and through. So that's something that would be worth looking into. So anyway, that's fine. We'll call it a day. And thanks for watching. If you have comments, post them below. And we'll see you next time.